Welcome back to the Big Breakthrough online 4-week program. We're into week 3. So you've had some good opportunity to really get deeper into some of the aspects that we've been discussing throughout these last few weeks. And I hope that you're starting to see yourself from this bigger picture and healing your relationship with yourself so that you can be breaking through those limiting beliefs that have held you back for so long. Now, I want to just go over the homework because that is such a big part of what creates the breakthroughs and freeing yourself from those beliefs. So what was your dominating role? Hopefully you're very clear now on what that dominating role is. And you've perhaps seen it a lot through the triangles you listed out last week as well. And having a good week to really see all those drama triangles happening, either in your own life and self, or maybe you observed others doing it. Like now that you have this knowledge, you can see it everywhere. It's so fascinating to me when I'm sitting like at my coffee shop and I'm watching this triangle just happen between the people that are in conversation next to me. So you start seeing them everywhere. And that dominating role is such a critical part to you being able to be free, again, free from your limiting beliefs. So we're going to get deeper into these today. And then the other part of homework was, how does that show up in your life or business? So this dominating role, hopefully you got to really see how it's affecting you in your level of success in your business, as well as your life, of course. And your relationship with yourself. If you're playing that dominating role on yourself and stuck in a drama triangle, then can you really have a healthy relationship with you and hence others, right? And you have all your triangles that you wrote out in our last class as well as saw throughout the rest of the week. So we're going to be coming back to those today. But I want to get into a deeper understanding of these roles because they can also be known as a personality. So a role is the same thing as having a personality. And they were developed as coping mechanisms for handling various events in life. Now, those events tend to be times of conflict. So we were really starting to get deeper into that last week in understanding that these roles, which now you understand are personalities, were developed to cope or deal with something in your life. And those events that you were using these roles for were times of conflict. It was those times where you didn't feel good and couldn't truly understand what was going on, because it's not the reality of conflict, right? It's the perception of conflict. So these personalities literally have complex thoughts, feelings, and even body sensations, which are capable of acting as a complete person for shorter or longer periods of time. So I know I felt like this before in life, where it was kind of like I did not feel like myself. I literally felt like a different person, like I went kind of crazy, you could say, and that was that villain personality. And it was completely different from what I knew myself to be. So when we say that they have complex thoughts, feelings, and even body sensations, it's almost like you can watch someone go from their true, authentic self to taking on this personality, and they become somebody totally different. Even the way they dress, even the way they speak or communicate becomes very different, and you're kind of going like, who are you? Well, now you know. It's their role or their personality, and the same as for you. It's your role or personality. And it kind of takes over. It becomes a specialist in particular emotions or perceptual state. So it's kind of like, I'm the specialist. I know how to handle this situation. So let's say that there is an event that's coming up in your life. It's a time of conflict for you. So this personality comes out and goes, hey, I got this. I know how to handle this. I'm the specialist in this situation. So you just take a back seat and I'll take over. And that's literally what ends up happening. So these personalities tend to become stuck at the age or trauma of conflict. So imagine you took on this role between the ages of 3 and 5, and that role or personality got stuck at that age. So when you're in a time of conflict, like your drama triangle, there's an event that's coming up that's a perceived conflict. You're essentially showing up as your 5-year-old self. It's like all logic goes out the door, and you're just completely going to handle that situation from your role and that 5-year-old child. Imagine that. Like literally picture yourself as a 5-year-old handling your adult life, handling the conflicts, the stressors that show up in your adult life. This is kind of funny and it cracks me up. There's an insurance commercial, I think, that I've seen. I'm pretty sure it's car insurance company. And the commercial is about this little kid who's taking on all these adult roles. Like he's going to the grocery store and the grocery bag like ends up, the bottom of it falls out and all the groceries fall onto the ground. And then he's stuck in traffic sitting behind the car and there's something else that happens. And then the dad goes, "You ready to drive?" And the kid's like, "Oh no," because he was imagining all the adult stuff happening. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Your child self shows up to handle your conflicts or stressors in your adult life. And how can a 5-year-old child really handle those things? They can't. But it's like we give the power away to these subconscious coping mechanisms to deal with our lives. And it perpetuates the cycle that needs to stop. Now, generally, your personality is not felt unless there is a perceived conflict going on. And when that does happen, the personality totally takes over. It's like, again, you take the back seat, your logic takes the back seat, the adult you takes the back seat, and the child takes over from its personality or role in order to cope with that situation. Now, what this does is creates what I call a resistance cycle. And all your limiting beliefs are a part of this resistance cycle. Everything you view of yourself and others in the world is essentially centered around your personality. So everything you view, it's like wearing a pair of glasses, and everything you see from yourself as well as with others and the whole world is really centered around that personality. This is why it's so hard for us to see the truth or the reality. Someone's really proving to themselves that like they're right. They can only see it from that perspective. So they can't see your perspective. And vice versa, you're going, "I'm right. This is what's really going on, not what you think is going on." But the other person is saying the same thing. So that's where all that conflict and drama comes into play again, because we're all trying to prove that what we see is real. It's the truth. But they see it very differently, and that's their truth. So when that's happening, more blocks are created, and there's no way to heal, break free from, or move beyond in that moment. And this is when this resistant cycle happens. You basically get sucked into the cycle. So when this is occurring, you're hijacked and you're using your role as a way to try to protect yourself. Okay, so I'm reiterating a lot of things here. If we go back to class 1, when we talked about the hijack, remember, the hijack happens when the amygdala is firing and going, "Hey, you're not safe here." And you're not safe because you're perceiving some kind of conflict going on. So the mind is saying, "All right, I need a moment here to cope with this because I don't feel safe. We got to find some safety. I'm going to be the specialist. I know what to do here." And it pulls you into that role. and you're in your protection mode. But really, can you see the insanity of it? Like, hence why it's being called a resistance cycle. There's so much resistance and fighting in that, and the cycle is just completely taken over, and it just keeps happening again and again and again and again and again. So I want you to create your resistance cycle. Now, the way that you're going to do this is by taking out a blank piece of paper. So in your notes, go ahead and take out a blank piece of paper. Now, on that paper, draw a big circle, okay, really big, because you're not going to know how big your resistance cycle is until you start getting into the details of it. So to create your resistance cycle, you're going to start by asking yourself this one question. Where do I think my resistance cycle starts? Where do I think my resistance cycle starts? Now, wherever that is, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. I just want you to think about that question and write down where you think it starts. Do you think it starts with you trying to prove something, trying to prove that you're right? Does it start with feeling like you're left out or like you don't belong? Does it start with some kind of statement someone says to you that then triggers a feeling? Where does your cycle start? Could be anywhere. Just take a moment, think about that, and go ahead and write it down. Where does your resistance cycle start? Now, you're going to go ahead and write that down at the very top of the circle that you drew, because we're saying that's the beginning, essentially, where it starts. Now, here's the next question you need to ask yourself. What happens next? Once it started at that point that you're saying you think is your starting point, what happens after that? And whatever comes up, right or wrong, just go ahead and write it down fairly close on your circle to where you started. Okay, so where do you think it goes from there? Hi. Okay, so I wanted to just jump right back in here because I realized as I was sharing with you to create your cycles that you probably need an example to see how this works. So I want to take a break here. Let me back up and share with you my cycle. I'm going to share with you two cycles. I'm going to turn on the video here so that you can see me. Hello. Here's me. So we're taking a pause for a moment in creating your cycle because I recognized that, you know, as I was telling you to create it, I'm like, you might need an example of what this would look like. So I decided to create my old money cycle. So this was before all this work and recognizing, you know, my beliefs, my limiting beliefs, and being stuck in the drama triangle and the resistance cycle. So here's my cycle. Hopefully you can see that here. All right, so there's my money cycle. And I'm going to go ahead and read it to you, but this is how it should look, something like that. Okay, where you've got your starting point, which I've got right up here. Here's my starting point, where that leads, where that led again, where that led again. And if it's a cycle, it should connect all the way back up to the top again. So there has to be this point where it connects again to the top. All right, so my old money cycle was, I want more money, but feel like it's only for someone else and not me. Like everybody else gets to have it, but not me. What happens after that is I don't think I deserve it. Then that leads to getting stuck and I don't do what I know I need to do. Then I bully myself. Then that leads to feeling like I can't do anything right. Then that leads to me seeking approval or attention from someone else. Then that leads to me feeling better. So I pull up my big girl pants and I start to quote unquote sell, or I get on the phone and have conversations. Then someone says no to me. Then I feel rejected and like I can't. And that leads right back up to the beginning again of I want more, but I feel like it's for everybody else and not for me. So there you go. That's the whole money cycle right there. Now I have another example for you. This is actually a client. I'm not going to show you the name. This was a client that we did this course, and this was for her relationship. So again, there's a starting point and then arrows that lead all the way back up to the beginning. So her relationship cycle, so we basically, you can approach this from two perspectives like we did in class 2. You can look at the different spokes of the life wheel from class 1 and just pick those main areas that you're focusing in on through this journey. Or you can just do it as a whole, okay? Because a lot of the parts from my money cycle fit into just as a whole. The whole non-deserving, the feeling rejected, the seeking attention, the bullying myself, like all of that translates into my other cycles as well. So you can approach it as in general in life, or you can do the different spokes and see the different cycles in each one. So here's this one from this client again around her relationship with her husband. So something unresolved from the past ends up coming out in their relationship. So there's something unresolved from their past, and that ends up coming out or showing up somehow in their relationship. Then from there, they have a agreed upon avoidance. So they decide, okay, we're not going to say anything about this. We're just going to, keep going, which then leads to having a temporary happiness. Then that leads to something small happens, like another kind of argument or thing that's fairly connected to that unresolved thing from their past, but not specifically. It's like something small, like he didn't wash the dishes, or he didn't do what he said he was going to do for the kids. Then that leads to more avoiding and coping mechanisms. Then that snowballs into a bigger argument. And then it snowballs into him leaving. Then she's angry, but also relieved. Then that leads to her grieving a little bit, being sad. Then that led to her feeling like, oh, I miss him and I want to contact him now. So then she contacts, they reconnect, he comes back home, and then something unresolved from their past happens again, shows up somehow again, leads to agreed upon avoidance. Then they're happy for the time, but then something small happens that triggers that. Then they go into more avoiding. Then that snowballs and that snowballs. And then there's some angry and relief because he ends up leaving. You see, so it's all right there. It's that whole same cycle. Okay, so hopefully these examples helped out. Go ahead and pause this recording now. I'm going to turn the PowerPoint back on so you can spend some time creating your resistance cycle. As always, if you are challenged with this, please reach out, send me an email, let me know, and I'll help you create your cycle, okay? So go ahead and pause, and then I'll rejoin you back over on the PowerPoint. Okay, so welcome back. You've created your resistance cycle. Now, hopefully you're seeing a lot of aha as far as, okay, why things keep happening or why it keeps reoccurring and why I'm calling this a resistance cycle. So now what I want you to look at is that there is a foundation to your cycle and your drama triangles. So what do I mean by foundation? It's like a home. Like you wouldn't build a house without having a solid foundation first, right? It wouldn't make sense. You need to have a foundation for that home to be held strong. That's what holds it up. Our resistance cycle and our drama triangles are the same way. So you have a foundation that's holding your whole cycle and your drama triangles together. Now, the resistance cycle holds your drama triangles. So let me back up again, okay? Every triangle that you drew out, not yesterday, in class 2, those triangles, your drama triangles I had you write out, basically you could take each one of those triangles and it would fit perfectly into your resistance cycle. So for example, my cycle around money that I shared with you, I have a drama triangle between my husband, myself, and money. My husband is the hero. He's the one I seek approval or attention from, so he heroes me. And I'm playing the villain or the victim based upon what I'm putting money as. So money will be my victim or my villain, depends on which I'm focused in on or I'm playing in that moment. There's a ton of triangles that fit in there. I also have another one between my mom, my dad, and myself, because guess where my money story came from? Yeah, parents, mom and dad. So there's a triangle there that still presently is drama. Okay, so all your triangles, you should be able to see them fit perfectly into your resistance cycle. Again, if you're having a hard time with this, let me know and I'll support you with it. Now, your foundation is hidden within your triangles, and it is the mirror to you. This is called a mirror effect. Now, this part can be a little challenging to embrace or really understand. But essentially, your mirror, the people in your life are a mirror to you. And that foundation is hidden inside of that mirror. So here's what I want you to do. From those triangles that you wrote out last week in class 2, I want you to pick out the 2 people that show up the most other than yourself. So not including yourself. Go ahead and pick 2 people that show up the most, or the 2 people that just really kind of irk you the most, or that cause you a lot of pain or hardship. Go ahead and pick those 2 people. Now, once you've picked those 2 people, I'm going to ask you to make a list of all the things that you hate about those 2 people. Now, I know I'm using a pretty harsh word here. I'm using the word hate, but go ahead and just trust me here. There's a reason why I'm using that word. So go ahead and just make a list of all the things that you hate about each one of those people. All right, so hopefully you have your list made, and I'm going to put my camera back on again so that you can see what I'm doing here. It's just so you can see what we're going to do here to find that mirror effect. Okay, so hi again. All right, so I made my list, and I just put person 1 and person 2 so that, I can maintain anonymity. This is anonymous. So if these people ever see this, they're not going to know who this is. Well, maybe they will from my list. But anyhow, person 1 and person 2. And here's my list, so you can kind of see, what I hate about each one of these people. And again, I know I'm using a harsh word, but there's a purpose for it. Now, here's the whole mirror effect part. Basically, what the mirror effect means is that what I hate about these people, I also hate within myself. There's that mirror. It's not just them, it's something that's within me. So looking at your list, and I understand this is a hard truth to acknowledge. But remember from our last class, if we're not acknowledging the truth, then no breakthroughs, no healing, no freedom from your beliefs can ever happen. And you're going to stay stuck in your whole resistance cycle. So as painful as this might be, it will get you to that next level. You just have to be willing to be uncomfortable in acknowledging the truth. So if you take a look at your list, can you see the mirror to you? I certainly do, as much as I don't like to admit it. These were all there, very much so. Controlling, don't listen, need to be right, angry, fake, don't take responsibility, manipulative, defensive. That was on one list. The other side has plays the victim. That was a little harder to see, but when I started to look at my triangles more, I realized, yeah, I do that. Doesn't take responsibility, pretends, doesn't speak up, angry, passive, takes frustration out on others, controlling, manipulative. So absolutely, I see the mirror. As much as I don't want to admit that, it's there. It's there. So here's the next step to this now. What we're going to do now is I want you to look for patterns or similarities between one person and the other person's list. So for example, both sides have controlling. So I'm going to go ahead and circle controlling on both sides. Let's see. Pretends and fake are very similar, even though same words, but it's the same thing. So I'm circling those two. And manipulative also shows up on both sides. So I want you to circle so it'll end up looking like this. So you've got circled on both sides the things that are similar or the same that show up on both sides. And I want you to circle at least 3. Hopefully you had more than 3 things on your list. Okay, so you're going to circle at least 3 of those similarities or the actual same thing. So go ahead and take a moment to do that. All right, now that you have your 3, or at least 3, again, take a look at that mirror. Can you see yourself in those 3 things? All right, you should be saying yes, nodding yes, saying yes. Next is we're going to use these 3 things to uncover your foundation. All right, we're going to use these 3 things that showed up on both sides of the list to uncover what your foundation is. So I'm going to start on my list with controlling, and you start with whichever one you want to from your list. You're going to ask yourself this question. What does it mean about me if I'm controlling? So the question will be, what does it mean about me if I'm controlling? Okay, so an example would be, what it means about me is that, let me think about this for a moment. This is a question you need to think about. So what it means about me is that I'm angry. You might want to say something like, it means that I need to control. That's what you do, not what it means. So be careful there that when you're answering this question, it's not what you do because of that thing, but it's what you make it mean about you. So now I'm at this angry place. So I got this meaning of I'm angry. So what does it mean about me if I'm angry? So I'm using that answer that I just got and placing the same question to it. What does it mean about me if I'm angry? That I'm a bad person. Okay? Now, I felt that. That hit me kind of in the pit of the stomach. Now, I also know what my foundation is, so it makes sense that it kind of hit in that pit of the stomach place. If you feel that happening, then you're for sure on the right track with your foundation. Now, I'm going to come back to the other two just to see. Okay, so I'm now going to use if I'm fake. What does that mean about me? Well, I go straight back to that I'm a bad person. If I'm manipulative, what does that mean about me? That I'm bad. It leads back to the same place. So all three things that you're asking yourself this question on should lead back to the same place. And that will be your foundation. So my foundation to my whole money cycle and every other cycle that I've created around my life wheel, or the one just in general that I did as a whole, the foundation to that is that I'm bad. It holds this whole cycle up. My drama triangles, every single one of them, it holds those triangles in my cycle and it holds them together, creating more conflict and drama. So I want you to take a moment here and really do this exercise. Again, watch out for the answer is asking yourself, what does it mean about me? Pay attention to if you go to the place of what you end up doing rather than what does it mean about you, okay? Go ahead and take a moment here. Take yourself through each thing and see if you can get it back to leading to the same place, because that will be your foundation. And then join me back when you're ready. All right, now that you're back, I know it's challenging. This is a doozy, this one. So however you're feeling right now is totally valid. And let me just share with you some foundations that I've heard before, just to help you out here. I'm bad is a big one. I'm worthless. I'm nothing. I'm a waste. I'm not enough. I'm unlovable. I'm a failure. I'm not important. I'm unwanted. So those are some examples of some of the foundation pieces. Now, the foundation piece is pretty critical to your cycle and your drama triangles, because again, it's what holds it all together. So your foundation, again, holds it all together. Your personality comes out to create some sense of safety because your foundation is being poked. And it is too similar to the trauma that occurred as a child. So here's what's happening. That foundation that you have is being poked. In other words, that's where the unsafety starts to happen. So when using mine as an example, when I feel like someone is getting close to seeing that I believe I'm bad, I'm going to fight against that because I'm not going to feel safe. And it's very similar to the trauma that I experienced as a child when I made up this foundation that I'm bad. And it's just like replaying it over and over and over again in my current life. So same thing. It's you fighting against your foundation is what makes it solid and strong. The moment you stop fighting that foundation or trying to prove that you're not that, That's when freedom happens. That's when all your limiting beliefs go away. That's when your resistance cycle just vanishes. That's when you don't have any more conflict or perceived conflict to where you need your role. It's you fighting against this foundation, trying to prove that you are not that foundation. That's what I mean by being poked. So you found your foundation. Now, here's kind of a snapshot of the whole thing. A trauma was experienced as a child. There was emotion stored in that amygdala place, typically from the ages of 3 to 5. A personality or your role took form in order to cope with the quote-unquote trauma. You formed a foundation that you don't want to accept as true. That's that fight part. So this foundation you don't want to accept as true. Because of that, a hijack occurs and you've got drama and conflict going on, and that creates your resistance cycle. So there it is, all in one snapshot. Now, I know today was a lot. There was a lot inside of class today. You not only uncovered your resistance cycle, but you uncovered this foundation, which most likely is painful. But again, it's you resisting the cycle that has caused it to be really strong and hold your cycles together. So in our next class, we're going to talk about what you do with that. Now what? Okay? For now, your homework is to recognize your resistance cycle. If you did it in the different spokes of the life wheel, or if you did it in general, you're just going to be looking, observing yourself to see yourself in that cycle. You're going to sit with your foundation. Now, what I mean by that is that you don't use your role as a way to cope with your foundation, that you actually allow yourself to sit in it. Excuse my French here, but sit in your shit. Don't avoid it. Actually allow yourself to feel the emotions around the foundation that you uncovered. That's going to be key for your breaking through. We'll talk about that in week 4's class. But you got to be able to sit with those emotions rather than jump into your coping mechanisms. Now, the last thing is I want to give you a tool to eliminate the hijack. So this is going to be a very useful tool to help you in eliminating your hijack and stopping yourself from fighting against your foundation so that you won't need your role. Now, this isn't the end all be all. It's a tool to just help you in the moment. And this tool is called SOSS. So it's an acronym. The first S stands for stop. I want you to just literally stop in the moment. Get some perspective. Step into your observant self. Okay? Just stop. O stands for oxygenate. Now, what happens in the hijack is that the amygdala is releasing the chemical of adrenaline. So it's releasing adrenaline into the body so that you can either fight, flee, or freeze. So that's essentially what's happening in the hijack. Now, oxygen has another chemical which also connects to the next S. But let's just stick for oxygen for a moment. Through breathing, you're beginning to eliminate that adrenaline rush, okay? So you're literally going to take a deep breath. First you stop, and then take a deep breath. Get oxygen into the bloodstream. The next S stands for seek feelings of gratitude. Seek feelings of gratitude. Now, gratitude has to do with releasing oxytocin, and this is the chemical that counteracts adrenaline. So when you start thinking about things that you're grateful for, oxytocin kicks in and it'll start to diminish the hijack because it's beginning to diminish the adrenaline running through the bloodstream. And this could be anything that you're grateful for. You know, it could be I'm grateful for the sun. I'm grateful for getting to breathe. I'm grateful for the color purple. I'm grateful that I have this SOSS tool to use. I'm grateful that my hair looks nice today. Like anything and everything. Just think of whatever you can that you're grateful for in that moment. The last S stands for seek information. Seek information. So you're seeking information as a way to engage the neocortex part of the brain. And we talked a little bit about this in class 1. The neocortex can think more logically, so it pulls you out of the emotional state. So seeking information means you're going to ask yourself and others questions, but you're going to start with yourself first. This is one of my favorite questions to ask myself when I'm in a hijack because it gives me perspective. Here's the question. What's really going on here? So I'm asking myself, what's really going on here? I immediately start to engage my neocortex and it begins to pull me out of the perception of conflict. Now, what I know is really going on is that my foundation of I'm bad is being poked by me or someone else. I'm perceiving them to poke it, like I'm going to be found out. I don't want to be bad, so I'm trying to prove that I'm not. My resistance cycle is present, so I know what's really going on. But just by asking that question, it gets me present to, oh, okay, yeah, I get what's going on. Another great seeking information question is, what's the truth? What is the truth right now in this moment? Another great question is, what am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? Now, questions you could ask other people, because it's seeking information of them too, could be questions like the same thing. What's really going on for you right now? Am I the source of your anger? If you're feeling villainized by them, I love using this question too. Am I the source of your anger? And it kind of wakes them up like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, no, I'm just angry. And you just happen to be right here. So there's all sorts of questions, and it depends on the moment, on the experience. But you're seeking information first of yourself, and then if you need to, of others. So there you go. Really useful tool to help you eliminate the hijack. It's not going to help you get rid of the hijack, but it's going to help you free you and eliminate that intensity of the hijack. What will help you rid yourself of the hijack is the other things that we talked about today. Mainly sitting with your foundation rather than trying to jump into your coping mechanisms, that you're sitting with it and allowing yourself to feel it. All right, I know this was big today. As always, please reach out, info@coachwithalejandra.com if you need support in any of what we talked about today. Thank you so much. You're on the right path. Keep going, and I'll see you next week.